Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from our news hub here at Desawe Kanda. You can also listen to us live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're also live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. We are live all across the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We go straight as looming crisis in the West African sub-region as chiefs of defense of ECOWAS members converged at Abuja, Nigeria, over plans to reinstate ousted Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum. Ghana's President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, meanwhile, says the country will support ECOWAS in their quest to restore democracy in Niger. This evening on Hot Edition, we analyze the implications of a military intervention in Niger. Stay with us. Also, organized labor is in a crunch meeting over new proposals from government seeking to include pension funds into the second phase of the Domestic Debt Action Program. National Labour Commission directs Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAC, to call off the strike. We have updates and reactions from CTAC shortly, but also Elections Committee of the governing New Patriotic Party meets flag bearer aspirants again over concerns of electoral roll for August 26th Special Delegates Conference. We have details plus the latest in business, sports and entertainment coming up for the next 60 minutes. You're on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Welcome. We'll give you updates as well in Parliament as MPs have raised concerns over the influx of Burkinabes in northern Ghana. Also, the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, TEWU, gives Fair Wage and Salaries Commission ultimatum to finalize allowances for non-teaching staff. Parliament is still sitting today and expected to rise by close of day today. Stay with us. We'll give you details of that and what's happening in Parliament as well here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's go straight to our first story this evening, where there's a looming crisis in the ECOWAS the sub-region as military leaders of ECOWAS member states meet to determine the regional bloc's next line of action in the wake of the military coup in Niger. Chiefs of defense staff of member ECOWAS states are currently in Abuja, Nigeria, for ECOWAS chair, and then also the Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is threatening to use force to restore ousted Mohamed Bazoum, the president of Niger. The threats have been met in equal measure with the military administrations of Mali and Burkina Faso stating they will support the military regime in Niger. Already, a leaked memo from within the Nigerian army has also revealed an order to have soldiers move to the northern part of the country to enforce a no-fly zone in Niger. Ghana's president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, amidst all the crisis, says Ghana will support ECOWAS efforts to restore democracy in Niger.
There are, unfortunately, emerging trends of some military takeovers in the West African region, which are, however, not seen or accepted by the international community as the norm and will never be. Ghana will continue to count on her diplomats to offer the needed support in these countries to help them return to democratic governance, which is the norm, and without doubt would yield more sustainable growth and development opportunities for all classes of people in any society.
Well, that's President Akufo-Addo there. Now, the military approach, however, is being questioned by the chair of the leading opposition party in Ghana, and we will get some reaction shortly on that as well. But let's go straight to Nigeria, speak to Abdul Latif Ahmed is a Nigerian journalist with News Central Nigeria, joining us from Abuja, where this crunch meeting is taking place. Abdul Latif, thank you so much for joining us straight from Abuja here on Hot Edition in Ghana. First of all, what's the latest from the ongoing security meeting in Abuja?
Yes, the security meetings have been a marathon. The heads of military, top brass military officers from across West Africa are deliberating on a potential military campaign in Niger Republic to see if they can force the military leaders to relinquish power back to the president, President Mohamed Bazoum. However, that is on their side. This evening, the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has dispatched the high-power delegation involving the Sultan of Sokoto, very well respected in the region. The former president, military head of state of Nigeria, General Absalom Alhaji Abubakar. He's been a mediator over the past few years, and a few others who will go to speak to the military leaders of Niger Republic. Mind you, these two are retired military officers, so they are able to speak in the language that they would rather comprehend, if I will put it that way. Again, you have the decision of the military leaders' conversion in Abuja is yet to be known. However, it's interesting that this soft approach by the president ahead of any military campaign is coming. I'm thinking that he would rather exhaust all peaceful diplomatic routes before any military campaign happens in Niger Republic.
I see, but how about especially the stance that Bola Tinubu had taken earlier about using some military intervention, or as it were, getting a military force to restore the presidency of the ousted Nigerian president. Now, what's the latest on that? The reactions that have greeted this particular position so far?
Yeah, so a lot of Nigerians have reacted and responded to say that why do we need a military reaction when we didn't take action against some other countries that participated in the coup? What they might not have realized is that the situations in each of the coups that happened in other countries are not exactly the same as what we have in Niger Republic. If you look at the belt that suffers most from cross-border crimes in Africa is about the same where the coups are happening, from Mali to Burkina Faso to Niger to Sudan, all of them contiguous countries. And one thing you should understand is if you do not send a stand warning, it will basically catch up with the entire region. I mean, in the whole of the continent, it's West Africa that is still dogged by so much instability and military interference. So for me, his statement stands. It has not been ruled out. There's a possibility of that, but I'm sure he would rather exhaust all the diplomatic routes, all the possible mediation processes, and put the cards on the table for the military leaders in Niger to consider. He's a civilian president, and we had a former president who has a military background, but would rather take the soft part. Sometimes those who will choose to be conciliatory are those who have seen the worst in terms of war. It is not out of being unnecessarily haughty that the president is saying we cannot rule out military.
Hello, sorry, we had a break in that connection with Nigerian journalist Abdul Latif Ahmed with Nigeria's News Central, joining us from Abuja, where this crunch meeting is taking place, and giving us updates on the reactions, the fallout so far from that's happening. Yes, Abdullah, I lost you briefly. So what's the next step in this meeting from what you've gathered so far?
Yes, so what I think is the mediators will be in Niamey. They will discuss with the military top brass already. President Mohammed of Chad, who is not among the ECOWAS countries, has actually met with the military leader in Niger Republic to speak to him as a
Sorry, we apologize in that breaking connection with Abdul Latif Ahmed joining us from Abuja, Nigeria, where this crunch meeting is taking place between the chiefs of defense staff of the member states of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, who are currently in Abuja after the ECOWAS chair, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu threatened to use force to restore ousted Mohamed Bazoum, that's the president of Niger. The threats have been met in equal measure with the military administrations of Mali and Burkina Faso stating they will support the military regime of Niger. Already there's a leaked memo which we have a copy of from within the Nigerian army revealing an order to have soldiers move to the northern part of Nigeria to enforce a no-fly zone in Niger. That's really another aspect that's generated some conversation. And Latif, you were just rounding up about what the next step is from what you're picking from this meeting. Quickly, before we go.
Yes, we'll wait for the outcomes of the mediations by former President Abdulsalam Abubakar and the Sultan and his delegation, the ECOWAS delegation to Niger Republic, before we can be sure of what direction it will take. It's probably from the response we get, extracting pledges from them, that we can decide what next the ECOWAS team may decide on Niger Republic.
Abdul Latif, thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And it's joining us. Yes, joining us straight from Abuja. You're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. This is Johnson Esiedun Ketia, who's the chairman of the opposition NDC, also saying that the military approach that ECOWAS is considering will not be the right approach to take in the situation in Niger.
I think it is a reckless experiment. We shouldn't go for military intervention now. They should look at the military interventions all over the world and tell me the end state. So I don't think that we should rush into any military intervention. We should be looking for the causes of these military interventions and address them. What is happening across the Sahel is bigger than just a small military intervention. Any military intervention will be aimed at dealing with the symptoms rather than the causes of the disease itself. I believe that it has a lot to do with France's neo-colonial policy. And that is why in all the 506 cases, it is about French-speaking colonies. So we should look at it again.
Well, that's Johnson Esiedun Ketia there. And Dr. Victor Doka is a security analyst and also with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, joining us on the telephone. Dr. Doka, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. I know this situation that's rolling out quite rapidly in Niger is something you've been following quite closely. This position or the option that ECOWAS is mulling of taking, that's the military intervention. Is that going to work based on the dynamics of the situation in Niger?
Well, thank you very much. With regards to ECOWAS, we all know it has its mandate. And one of the mandates is in regards to conflict prevention and conflict management. However, let's not forget what happened in some time back with our neighbors. I'm forgetting the name, but when this president refused to concede and then he wanted to stay on, we knew what happened when regards to the standby force that went into that country.
So are you talking about the Gambia situation, Yaya Jammeh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's one of the examples. However, with its mandate, okay, when it comes to intervening in situations like this, one, let's recognize ECOWAS has its mandate. Two, intervene where it realizes, right, early warnings that has been gathered, analyzed, the meetings with security chiefs, okay? And then let's not forget the aspect of preventive diplomacy. If it works, and if it doesn't work, then we know the last option will be the military intervention. However, per its mandate, yes, it can go in to forestall order, okay? But since we have recognized that we want to go the democratic way, then we cannot have room for coup d'etats to be happening. So per its mandate, it has every authority to intervene when it comes to these situations.
But
either with just conflict prevention.
I see that, but I contextualize my question in what's happening in and around Niger. I mean, if you look at the 6 African countries currently under military rule, Burkina Faso since January 2022, Chad since April 2021, Guinea since September 2021, Mali since August 2020, Sudan since October 2021. They are actually under military rule, and now Niger, all right? And all these countries, if you look at their position on the African map, they share borders. They are neighbors. They are resource rich. In fact, what we checked as well is that a number of these countries have foreign military bases in them as well. Taking into consideration all of these dynamics, would the military option be the right one?
Yes, Alfred. Now, in my personal opinion, if the military intervention is going to forestall democratic rule, then ECOWAS has the authority to go for it. But how quickly they can mobilize resources? Let's not forget, this sub-regional organization is also struggling when it comes to logistics and funds. Okay? How quickly can they mobilize the standby force? That's another question. If it is to forestall democratic rule, because let's not forget, once we give room for coup d'etats and juntas to be ruling, we are creating the impression that it's the new norm. As you mentioned, 6 African states are already under military rule. ECOWAS spoke in all of these instances. What action did they take apart from speaking? Okay, so ECOWAS now would not want to be seen as just a rhetoric, but they want to prove a point and act. So I would not be surprised in the coming days or weeks if I get to see or hear mobilization when it comes with regards to the standby force, resources from even international partners who would want to see democratic rule back. I would not be surprised at all, Alfred.
See, now, Dr. Okay, please hold on a bit for me. Let me bring in Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar, Executive Director of the West Africa Center for Counterterrorism and Extremism, joining us with his thoughts on this as well. Mutaru Mumuni, thank you so much for joining us. And first off, the analysis of the fact that all these countries experiencing the instability as we speak in the sub-region all have military bases in them and resource rich as well. That clearly points to a message, does it not?
Relations or political relations. It relates to trade, it relates to competition for resources and the larger geopolitical interests of those partners. And so some of these countries that we are dealing with, the situations that we are looking at in terms of the 3-4 countries that have had coup situations, all these countries have huge, deposits of mineral resources, and they have military bases as well from multiple partners within the region. And so the competition here, it's beyond just normal trade. It's also to secure the economic interests, the resources, the raw materials that these countries have to be able to power their economies and power their industries. And so it's for that, strategic reason that we have these countries, present in our region in this way.
I see, but in looking at the other dimension as well, where we're talking about the kind of approach that ECOWAS intends to take. We understand the meeting is ongoing in Abuja, and there's another crunch meeting tomorrow as well. Now, if you had the ears of ECOWAS, what would be your recommendation?
Let's take a few steps back, away from the July 30th declaration in terms of the intended deterrent measures against the coup leaders. They need to employ a sense of deterrence as well as a sense of diplomacy. And the bigger goal is to how to walk these military leaders onto a path of democracy. How do you transition them into a path of democracy? It may be a short or medium term or long term, but it should be a kind of arrangement that has the goodwill and support of all stakeholders in this case. Of course, it's a very bad record to have this big number of coup situations happening within the region. And so it doesn't reflect positively on ECOWAS. And so ECOWAS it wants to be seen as a tough, strong, controlling regional bloc able to deal with situations like that. Unfortunately, ECOWAS has not been tooled in terms of structure and capacity to deal with situations like that. And so we need to work with, marry diplomacy with some kind of deterrence and walking them through to be able to transition the country back onto democracy. And that is what I would be emphasizing more. There are some very credible voices and leaders around, and they could engage them to lead the efforts and ensure that we normalize the situation in Niger. I understand that the former president Buhari has a lot of goodwill in Niger, and so he could be somebody who could be consulted and engaged to lead efforts to be able to transition the country back into normalcy, into a civilian kind of rule.
Mukhtar, thank you so much. Dr. Doke, so the proposal of marrying diplomacy with some level of military intervention, is something that you would also subscribe to?
Well, Alfred, first of all, as I maintain, now if preventive diplomacy fails, then the option which ECOWAS has presented, be it military intervention, may proceed or be implemented, right? You can have the two working together. But when you talk about conflict resolution, now you have steps. Track one, preventive diplomacy, which is now being implemented. Dignitaries are going and speaking. When it fails, what happens? You can move to track two, where you have other CSOs coming in and talking, international bodies. Track three, the community and all that. What if all these fails? Then the last option would be the military intervention, which I stated, it has its mandate, right? The conflict prevention and management. When you look at the security architecture of ECOWAS itself, it gives that mandate to move in to foster democratic practices where necessary and needed. So the two can go along. And let's see how the preventive diplomacy works out. Other than that, then let's not be surprised if we see the standby force being prepared to move in.
Dr. Victor Doke, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
He's a security analyst also with the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. And to you as well, thank you very much for joining us. Mutare Mumuni Mokhtar, Executive Director, West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We understand the Ghanaian community in Niger is not too happy about a few developments there. There's been some apprehension about the communication that was earlier given to them, and they are not too excited. We understand they have sent an official position in a statement to the Ghanaian, that's ambassador to Niger, to respond to as quickly as possible. So that is another situation that we are keeping a close eye on, and we'll definitely be updating you here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 and also on 3FM 92.7. But away from that, the governing New Patriotic Party appears to be making some headway towards its August 26th Special Delegates Conference to trim its presidential aspirants from 10 to 5. The latest challenge was with its voters, of which another meeting has been held with the aspirants. The meeting was necessitated after details of another petition over the electoral register became public. The Lanchamantin campaign team petitioned the elections committee following what they said were anomalies discovered within the register. Key amongst the concerns were the replacement of deceased names in contravention of a directive not to tamper with the register, that the Chief of Staff, Fremont Parry, per the Constitution, is not entitled to vote, and a demand for clarity on the eligibility state of appointed chairpersons of committees of National Council. Yes, also Francis Adainimo, one of the flag bearer hopefuls, speaking after this said meeting.
The thing is that we are monitoring the process. This is an election with less than 1,000 delegates, and the objective is to shortlist the number from 10 to 5. and that is through voting. So the first 5, the highest, first, second highest, third highest, fourth highest, fifth highest, in terms of the number of votes to be secured. That is the shortlisting process. The objective is not to elect the flag bearer, and I'll urge you, the media, to discuss that. The objective of the super delegates is not to elect the flag bearer or even to give an indication who becomes the flag bearer. We are only doing a short listing process, period.
Oh, that's Francis Adainemo there, and also of Samia Wuku, who is a former national organizer of the NPP, also represented the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, at the said meeting, and this is what he had to say.
The thing is that we are monitoring the process. This is
that we needed clarity on. It had to do with how the party is managing the proxy vote. And for us as aspirants, for us representing the aspirant, we also made our case. And I represented Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia with the Honorable Federal. But I think it was a very good meeting. Things that we needed clarity on. We needed to also understand some of the processes leading. Again, we had detected some key anomalies in the album, and we needed to point it out to the party as well. Again, last but not the least, also the party needed to also be clear on the voting day and its modalities. And the rainy season, are you doing open, or you are doing the close place, or you are doing contingent application of it? And also to also avoid people taking undue advantage of the processes. We also made our point known that anybody also coming in there to vote, we needed to be clear that the person is also not going in there whether to take pictures or whatsoever. So these were things that we discussed.
Also, the Evans Nemakon also spoke to us after the said meeting, and quite crucial it is. And we've been following quite closely how things have been playing out. The Director of Elections insisting they will go strictly by the rules of the engagement. This is Evans Nemakon speaking to my colleague.
Fair, special electoral college. And so, as we speak, they must be very happy with the processes put in place so far. And we are insisting that we're going to go strictly by the rules of engagement. Where there have been guidelines, we will go strictly by them. There was this issue of proxy. The time is now 5th, which is Saturday, 10 a.m. The party committee will close application for proxies, and copies of such applications will be made available to the candidate. And today they've been told. And I think that so far, they must be happy about the process, and they would have told you how the meeting went. And I must say that with all intents and purpose, the party is organizing a very free, fair, transparent presidential primary, starting with this special electoral college. We are only expecting that they will stick to their issue-based campaign and also be mindful of their affidavit, of the oath they've sworn to the party, and also be reminded and minded of the end of this whole primaries. The party will come force to prosecute election 2024 and come out with victory.
So that's the Director of Elections of the NPP, Evans Nemakon there. And still saying with the NPP, some flag-bearer aspirants of the new patriotic party say President Akufo-Addo's decision to distance himself from endorsing any presidential aspirant is in the right direction. They say it will ensure fairness in the party's internal elections. However, they are demanding he walks the talk ahead of the 26th August Superdelegates Congress. The president has spoken, and they want to see that he is indeed going by his words. By merely saying it does not mean that he does not support a candidate. And one concerned party member said while speaking to my colleague at the party office, a spokeswoman for the Alan Chamantin campaign also giving details, reacted that the concerns expressed and in reality there is organized support behind a specific candidate despite the president's public renunciation. In fact, they want a lot more beyond that particular statement by President Kufuor that he does not support any candidate. And this is Kwabena Japan as well, speaking about this to my colleague Johnny Hughes earlier today.
Free and fair special electoral college. And so, as we speak, they must be very happy with the processes put in place so far.
You see, action speaks louder than words, in my view. And I think this situation has been created because of what was happening. A lot of, and I mentioned this some time ago, a lot of CEOs, which again, I think it goes against the grain of governance principles, because when you are a public officer, a director general of lotteries, or you are the managing director of state transport, or the CEO of Bui Power, I don't think it lies within you to go to the party headquarters and pick up a form for a candidate. It's wrong. You may support the person quietly. That is fine. I mean, everybody can support someone. That's fine. But can you become a managing director or CEO of Ghana Gas or GNPC?
Free Zones Authority?
You are not allowed to do that. State Housing Corporation. You are a public officer. You serve the whole of Ghana. You can't be actively involved in divisive politics, even at the internal elections level. And that is just simply the fact. And I was stating the fact. When I state the facts and people get uncomfortable with it, they think I'm attacking someone. I'm not. I think that if you want to support the person, like others are supporting me, they haven't come out openly, but they send me reasonable resources for me to be able to go around. You know, you don't know what offices they occupy in the government.
That's right.
Or wherever. You understand? So I think it is wrong. The optics is poor on governance for public officers, CEOs of organizations to relinquish their work and be roaming around campaigning with a candidate. And if that is wrong, we have to say it.
Okay.
That's the kind of culture we need to build. The new politician, the new Ghanaian. So once you see that, and these are all the president's appointees, then it begs the question. You understand? So it's not him just saying it. He should have authorized the chief of staff to call them to order.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he should do.
Well, that's Kwabena Japan there, and also singing the same song of the other aspirants that the president should walk the talk, beyond his saying that he is not going to declare support for any specific candidate in this flag bearer race of the NPP. But the woes of the Bank of Ghana deepens as the minority in parliament threatens that a future NDC government will drag the governor of the central bank before court for financial breaches as the bank announces huge losses. Ranking member on the Finance Committee of Parliament, Isaac Adongo, says Dr. N.S. Addison is not fit to be governor. The regulator posted almost 61 billion cedis loss for last year, that's 2022, resulting in a negative equity for the bank. While the House readies to rise later today, the minority has put under the radar the Finance Committee's report seeking approvals for some $52 million for capacity building in an international fund for agricultural development facility.
You see, Bank of Ghana is not somebody's insurance company. It is not the same as Fidelity Bank or other financial institutions that you can bulldoze your way and write off. These are public funds. They must come to Parliament by a resolution of a simple majority. And the resolution must state the amount involved. It must state how much is written off. So I want to ask Deloitte and Touche, the auditors of Bank of Ghana, whether they saw any resolution from the Parliament of Ghana authorizing the write-off of 32 billion. And on the basis of which they approved the accounts and expressed the opinion that they expressed on the account. When you are auditing an institution, particularly a public institution, you need to be conversant with all its legal obligations. Dr. Addison, you have put a lot of ropes around your neck. You only need to pull it. When I told him that Bank of Ghana, you don't even have dollars, so how can you have rates? Abochi has the dollar. Not knowing they were secretly using the Abochi rate. And then publishing fake rates to us. How come your CD was so stable and so strong that you suffered such a high rate of exchange loss? You, the man who's supposed to manage the exchange rate, you told all of us that the exchange rate is at a certain figure, making you one of the best managers of the exchange rate. Now go and prepare your account. So I lied. The exchange rate was very high. As a result of that, I suffered some exchange losses. Are we serious? Do we look like we are serious? So which exchange rate was he publishing?
As Isaac, I don't go there. It's a ranking on the Finance Committee of Parliament. Let's bear in mind that Parliament is still sitting and expected to rise later today. So we have eyes on how things are playing out in Parliament. But the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly and the leadership of the tricycle operators are gradually coming into a consensus on the restriction of tricycle taxis within the Central Business District. This comes on the back of fierce resistance by the operators. Here's a report by Ashanti Regional Correspondent Ibrahim Abubakar.
The KMA seems to have softened its stance on the enforcement of the tricycle taxi ban. After a clash with the police for 2 days in a row, the riders have been allowed to operate freely. An engagement by city authorities and leadership of the tricycle operators on Wednesday is showing signs of harmony.
We know that the General Assembly, who took the decision at Prempeh Assembly Hall, where we are, will also look at the situation and then take further decisions on it. But the first thing is for my brothers to just obey the rule that have been set. Then we will be able to sit down and talk. There were a few tricycles that were picked. We are going to ensure that they get released. We are all human beings.
The operators also expect KMA to take into consideration some of their demands for a smooth exercise.
If they say they are coming for a full ban, it will bring a lot of inconveniences. Good. Like someone who is not working inside the central business, maybe is passing through, the person should be allowed.
Well, we'll go and consult our members, but we are not comfortable with it. They say reduce the boundaries. At least if they say we should not come to Edum, it's a security zone, we are good to go. But adding Ketia, Dr. Mensa, Alaba, and those areas, no. When we go outside there, the only thing we can do is to roam on the high street. So we are not comfortable with their boundaries. They should reconsider their decision and close the boundaries.
The city authorities say they will start with an enforcement on Monday, August 7. But as to whether the riders will comply or not is another issue. We will keep an eye on this development and update you subsequently.
As Ibrahim Abubakar, Ashanti Regional Correspondent there. Let's go back to Parliament. As I indicated to you earlier, Parliament is expected to rise later today. And as is a characteristic of the last day, the sitting is still ongoing. And our Chief Parliamentary Correspondent, Komla Kluche, is connecting with us from Parliament. Komla, appreciate your time as always. What's going on in Parliament as we speak?
Well, the minority moved a motion for the finance minister to appear before the House to answer questions on the domestic debt exchange program. The minority made a case led by Dr. Kesalato Forsen that, and ever since the debt exchange started, Parliament has not been briefed. Parliament does not have any documents before it to look at and also know the extent to which the domestic debt exchange is being done. And so the finance minister should appear before it. This was, in one way or the other, opposed by the majority chief with Frank Anondompra, who says, well, it would not be a prudent thing to let the finance minister appear before the whole House. It should not be escalated to the whole House, and that it should just be limited to finance committee. However, when members contributed to it, the speaker gave okay, in the circumstances that they find themselves now, the finance minister should rather appear the finance committee on the motion being moved by the minority leader to have him appear before the whole house. In fact, the speaker made the point that, well, I mean, the finance committee is well equipped to go into this. They are legally supported by the standing orders, go to do, for want of a better word, an inquiry of, or however, to not to escalate this beyond any reason. There's a need for them to appear. Dr. Asuf-Forson came back again to say that, well, it's also because of what is happening at the BOG now, the loss of the over 60 billion that the BOG is blaming on government domestic debt exchange. There's a need for them to go ahead and do a proper inquest into this. But I mean, this landed back on the heels of the finance committee. But away from this, the other motion being moved by the minority led by Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa to have the National Cathedral investigated of the sort in court. And that has also been approved by the House. It was actually not challenged by the majority side. But what is left is that there should be an ad hoc committee that should lead the inquest. As it is now, the suggestion is that both leaders or both leadership will meet and decide on who will be part of that ad hoc committee for them to start with. There's no terms of reference yet as we speak. As it is now, yes, Parliament has given approval for the ad hoc committee to investigate the National Cathedral scandal.
I see, and I understand that the BOG governance issue also came up before Parliament, and the minority is mulling the idea of hauling him before the House to answer some questions. Is it not?
Absolutely. Isaac, the ranking member on the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, actually spoke to the media this morning, and he was very, very harsh with that the BOG boss has flagrantly offended, for want of a better word, the laws governing his office and also the Public Financial Management Act that needs to come to Parliament to be able to seek approval for the 60 billion that they have declared, for want of a better word, as a loss. So they said it doesn't have the unilateral power to do that. And then even the finance minister who he works with, anytime he intends to spend outside of it, he comes to to Parliament and asks for permission to do so. And so the BOG boss does not have that right. And so they are saying that the future NDC government would actually investigate and send to court the BOG boss for the conduct that led to the loss of the 60 billion. And they make the point that they are also aware that the BOG boss is doing everything he can to buy Mercedes-Benz allegedly for himself as he's nearing retirement. All claims the ranking member said they'll delve into the matter. So it was just to serve the notice that they are going to go ask the BOG boss, and he will stand alone when it comes to this investigation. His conduct is illegal. His conduct is an affront to the rules that govern his office.
Komla, appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Komla Kloche is a chief parliamentary correspondent giving us updates of what's happening in Parliament, being the last day today. Nanekia Mensa Brampa is standing by with business. Nanekia.
Happy birthday to you, Alfred.
It's not my...
You know
happy,
the birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday to Ghana tonight.
You and your team, you've done magic.
I appreciate it.
At 10 p.m. from 10 to 11, you're doing magic on TV.
Thank you
Congratulations.
so much. Thank you. Means a lot to us.
Yeah. So we are back to, I wouldn't say square one, back to the matter again regarding the LPG marketers and the cylinder recirculation policy or module. They said it's kick-starting again after conversations in September, but this time it's actually starting in September. So the phase one of it, and they're going to run concurrently.
So we're going to carry our cylinders to like a filling point?
Well, as to how the phase is going to take, we'll be getting a breakdown of it in coming days, but they are saying that it's going to run concurrently with the usual thing, you know, taking your cylinder to the point to fill it. But the recirculation, I'm sure you've seen the policy or the module and how they intended to do it. Nothing has changed. It's still the same, but a breakdown of it will come out in coming days after this holiday and the weekend. We'll be giving you a breakdown of everything. But for now, this is the information that we are gathering, that it is starting in September. Already the LPG marketers are not too happy with this news that is coming out, knowing that they would be fading out progressively as being suggested by the NPA, that is the National Petroleum Authority. But I have some details on that, so let me just get into it. My name is Nana Ekuya-Mensah Brampa, and the LPG marketers have expressed disappointment at the National Petroleum Authority's lack of engagement with less than a month to the engagement of the policy. This follows an announcement by the NPA that phase one of the reviewed cylinder recirculation policy will take effect from September. The program will run concurrently with already existing LPG retail system, which will be phased out progressively. Deputy CEO of the National Petroleum Authority, Perry Curtis Kobler, at a media engagement stated that already 4 bottling stations are set to commence operations to meet demand under the program. Let's hear him.
The capacity of these bottling plants are not even enough to feed 30% of the requirement. And that in itself tells you that there is a need for you to tread very, very, very cautiously, so you don't create any confusion in the system. So we are hopeful that they will make that switch in a very, very, very gradual and systematic manner, so we don't disorient the consumer, so we don't lose the LPG market, the consumption that we have already built. We don't lose it. Because one argument that we really make is that look, if our survey indicate that about 25% of consumption, domestic consumption of LPG, is done by petty traders who buys the product in smaller quantities, like 10 cedis, 20 cedis, 30 cedis for petty trading.
And you just heard the voice of the Vice President, Gabriel Kumi, they're expressing disappointment at the NPA for not engaging their group less than a month to implementation of the policy. And they're also warning of a possible negative impact on LPG consumption if the NPA's planned recirculation model is not implemented comprehensively. Vice President of the LPG marketers, Gabriel Kumi, again says the 4 bottling stations set to commence operations cannot serve even 30% of the market.
I would have loved that, since we are collaborating with them to do this, they would have invited us to be at this press briefing, so we could have a more holistic approach to briefing the press on the issue. But unfortunately, that did not happen. I think we would have presented a more united front if at this press briefing, MPA invited the marketers to be part of this, so that together we can all present a united front to the public, so that the public will know that, look, we are doing this in unity. But MPA alone calling the press and briefing them, the press would now have to struggle to come to us like you have done, to come to us to to tell our side of the story. But if I was there at the briefing with them and you asked, we also explained our part, I think that would have really presented a better picture to the press and to the Ghanaian people.
Gabriel Kumi is Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association. Away from that, a lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Professor Bernardine Sanza, has underscored the need to enhance the country's macroeconomic indicators to ensure poverty reduction in the country. He spoke on the sidelines of a launch of a report by the Economics Department of the university on the poverty dynamics in Ghana.
Note that when the poverty values are, it's both reported as a percentage. Even though the proportion of people in poverty may be declining, the absolute numbers may be increasing. Okay, so that is key. So it's not enough to just report about declining proportion of persons in poverty, but it's also key to look at the absolute numbers to see what is happening. And if you see more people in absolute terms falling into poverty, it tells you a lot. I have already alluded to the fact that macroeconomic policy is key. Inflation, keeping inflation under control is important so that it does not plunge people, because what it does to you is that it reduces the real resources available to you. Your disposable income goes down. You are able to command fewer goods and services than before. So macroeconomic stability is crucial for our poverty reduction efforts.
Lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Professor Bernardine Senaja, there, ending it for Business News on Hot Edition. When you log on to 3news.com, we have more business news updates. My name is Nana Ikuya Mensa Abrampa. We have sports next. Uriku Ampafo is standing by with the latest in the world of sports. All right, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Nana Ikuya. Let's head straight into the sports, where the Elections Committee have announced the roadmap for the 2023 Ghana Football Association elections, and just some key points from the roadmap. Nominations for the GFA president role officially opens on August 7 and then closes 4 days later on August 11. Voting for the new FA president will take place on September 27. We'll be bringing you more updates on who files their nomination before the August 11 deadline. Let's do some more here, where Black Stars head coach Chris Hughton says he's not shocked by Premier League clubs' interest in Mohamed Kudus. Following his great season with the Ajax in the 2022-2023 season, the Ghanaian wonder kid has attracted attention of several English clubs, including Brighton, Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United.
But he is a player of interest, there's no doubt. And I know there was interest this last season. I think it was Everton that last season. So I think he's a player that will always show interest from clubs. He's young. He has super ability, can score a goal. He also has that flexibility. You know, there is that question mark on what's his best position. At Ajax at the last season, he was playing predominantly on the right, left-footed, coming in field. Before that was very much as a 10. You know, he's a player that can do things on the ball, particularly when the spaces open up in the game. And he has that ability to surge in the spaces and can score goals. So, no surprise. It's an interest. For me, the most important thing is that he's playing. And playing as regular as possible.
And so that was Chris Hughton. Hughton himself did manage Brighton once upon a time, and that is our next destination for our next story, because the latest transfer news coming in from England is that Brighton do not expect to sell Moises Caicedo this window, and it's thought he will be with the Seagulls up until when the window closes. Chelsea are not meeting the evaluation of Brighton, and they do not expect the situation to change. Caicedo has been told this, and is not thought to be an issue with the player. The Colombian was voted as player of the 2022-2023 season for the Seagulls, and says he's ready to do more for the club.
I'm so happy to reach to the Europa League with Brighton, who the team who opened the doors in the Premier League was so good. Why not give my best for this amazing club?
Until the news gets through to those players, they are about to find out that they have done the job. Look at that. Just look at that. An eruption of emotion for Morocco. Swept aside by 6-0 on their first game at the finals. They are now through to the last 16, and it's too much for their head coach to take in. What a job he has done.
As Morocco have edged their names in the history books by advancing to the knockout stages of the FIFA Women's World Cup at their first attempt after beating Colombia by 1-0. On a day of breathtaking football, the Atlas Lionesses achieved a historic milestone, securing their place in the round of 16 in their debut appearance at the Mundial at the expense of two-time champions Germany. The team would now face France next in the round of 16 stage on August 8, and it also adds up to the fact that it's the first time that we'll be seeing 3 African countries in the knockout stage of the Women's World Cup. It's Morocco, South Africa and Nigeria who will be looking to lift the flags of the African continent high. And this is how we'll be wrapping up the sports segment here on Hot Edition. My name is Oriku Ampofo. Up next is Entertainment with Akofa.
Thank you very much, Oriku, for that. Let's just get straight to the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition. Ghanaian musician Lasmid has disclosed that he has overcome stage fright because he psyched himself up way before he entered the music industry. Making an appearance on Ijume Juma with Felicia Osei, the Friday night hitmaker revealed that stage fright is not a part of him, and he explains why by saying, "It's not a part of me. I feel that it is something we do often, so I've realized that it's normal for people not to enjoy your performance." Lasmid used the opportunity to advise artists to have in mind that not every performance gets positive feedback from the audience. He highlighted, "I think every artist should have this in mind. Sometimes you go on stage and no one minds you. It doesn't mean they are not listening to your music. They are. It's normal. So those things don't get to me." And before I go, American musician Lizzo has been sued by 3 of her former dancers for alleged sexual harassment and creating a hostile work environment, including instances where they were weight-shamed and pressured while at a strip club. The complaint, filed in Los Angeles Superior Court and obtained by CNN through an attorney for the plaintiffs, also names her production company Big Girl Big Touring Incorporated, BGBT, and a person described as dance cast captain as defendants in the suit. Now, among the claims outlined in the suit, one of the 3 plaintiffs said she was encouraged by the singer to take turns touching the nude performers while out at a club in Amsterdam's red light district while on tour in February. Now, Lizzo, however, has come out with a response. In the heartfelt typed out response, she described the past few days as gut-wrenchingly difficult and overwhelmingly disappointing. She concluded by saying, "I am hurt, but I will not let the good work I have done in the world to be overshadowed by this. I want to thank everyone who has reached out in support to lift me up during this difficult time." That wraps up the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Thanks for listening. And on behalf of Alfred and the rest of the team, we'd like to say a very big thank you for joining us. Hot Edition is on your radio every Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. on 3FM 92.7. And for more news updates, log on to 3news.com. The 3FM Drive team takes over your radio.